Welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It is Friday, October 3rd. In football-related trivia, this is the day that Friday Night Lights actually premiered. So
Like
many
the
years
first
ago.
season?
The first episode of the first season. It's also the day that Tom Brady became the NFL's all-time leader in career passing yardage. So
80
that's
for
pretty
Brady?
cool.
Yep.
That was only a few years ago, too, because he did it later on in his career. And then also the day that OJ was found not guilty.
Acquitted. Yeah.
Yes, that one's both political and this is a less political show. I
Oh,
would say.
yeah, no.
They do make fun of Hillary's emails at one point, but Chad Powers is a new Hulu comedy that evolved from Eli Manning's 2022 prank where he went undercover boss at Penn State's walk-on tryouts and balled out.
When I first saw the trailer for this series, I thought that it was just Hulu that looked at Apple TV Plus and realized a paper-thin premise or character like Ted Lasso could succeed wildly because it felt like the same exact thing. Both shows are based on a pre-existing character, best known for short-form content. But when you look at like Ted Lasso, it's been renewed for season 4, which is even a season more than the initial plan, which was only 3 seasons.
I thought it was renewed for season 5. Like, it feels like it's been around for 4 seasons
Joe
already.
Biden invited the cast to the White House. It has an 8.8 on IMDb, beating out other names like Black Mirror, Peaky Blinders, and even Dark, which I know is one of your favorite
It's a
TV
wholesome
shows.
show. The main character's a likable dude.
And
yeah.
I thought that that was exactly going to be what Chad Powers was trying to do. Just basically copy that, except the fact that ESPN was producing it.
I'm sure studio heads were thinking the same thing. However, the pitch was made, I think, to the Manning brothers first. And I think Peyton Manning's the one who used his connections throughout the thing to be like, yeah, I want to get this made.
So it wasn't even their idea.
And Glen Powell was already attached because he's the one who I think had the idea with Michael Waldron to team up. Michael Waldron. So Glen Powell, best known for his work on Spy Kids 3D.
Yes.
Yes. He also stars and executively produces. He wrote part of the first episode. Michael Waldron, creator of Loki, creator of Heels. He's wrote the Avengers Doomsday movie that's coming up. And he's also going to be writing Secret Wars. I think Doomsday and Secret Wars, are they like the Infinity War?
Yeah, it's kind of
like a two-parter?
Part 1, part 2. But I feel like Glen Powell, even though he already is kind of a household name, is going to become massive. If The Walk is any indication, The Walk, which came out 3 weeks ago, which got good reviews and did well at the box office, I think that Running Man might be that in spades. It might be like a massive hit.
Yeah, I think it's too late to be jumping aboard the Glen Powell bandwagon and saying he's now an A-lister. I think that happened maybe a year or two ago.
I'm saying I think he's going to be kind of like Chris Pratt was in 2015. Fresh out of Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was like every place wanted to cast him. I see that in his future.
Okay. I mean, I still think that that's already happened, but the question I have is that Michael Waldron, Rick and Morty, Loki, Heels, Avengers, like it just seems like he likes to do twisty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what's he doing here? You know, this is a show about a college football scenario, and it's like Glen Powell and him both decided to take a breather.
Well, the Heels connection makes sense because Heels was all about sports. It was about wrestling.
That's true.
So,
there's a bit, and there was an antagonist, sort of sarcastic character in that, right?
Yeah.
And so Glen Powell and him were friends. They teamed up for this. He also brought aboard Natalie Holt, who scored the music for Loki, as well as Rivals, the show that we did a few years ago, and Paddington.
Rivals was
all
the
over
David
the
Tennant
map
show.
Loki, Rivals, Paddington, and Chad Powers. That should be a trivia question. Who's worked on all of them? Okay, and so like the lowdown, let's start with 2 comparisons, okay?
Okay.
Because I know you can probably think of a bunch. And which if you just had to limit it to 2, which would they be?
Stick and Running Point, the 2 other sports comedies that have come out this year.
The basketball lady, the one who took over the Lakers, or is based on? Yeah. And then you said Stick, which is the golfing show. I have seen that one compared to
Owen Wilson, yeah.
Owen Wilson in that. If I was to pick 2, I would say Younger and BMS.
Why
it's like
Younger?
A combination of those 2. It's because the Younger is about a 40-year-old who pretends to be 26 to get a job and set out on her dream career. She just needed a makeover. He's getting a makeover, and then he still wants to do his dream career. He's playing like he's like late 20s. However, I think Glen Powell is in his late 30s.
It reminds me a lot of like 22 Jump Street, where Channing Tatum was part of the football team and he was supposed to be amazing, but I think that he was pretty old.
Well, you've seen that a lot in even The Replacements. Was that the football team thing? And then At BMS, you didn't ask me why I connected it with
I
that.
understand, because BMS is just like a full-on comedy.
It's a football-related show, but also the mascot. The mascot is in on it with Glen Powell's character.
Sammy. And do you know what the mascot's name is here?
No.
Danny. So
But
Sammy and Danny.
Sammy and Danny, and he's a catfish.
Yes.
Because that's the school's mascot is a catfish. So Russ Holliday, that's who Glen Powell's playing, a disgraced former college quarterback, tries to resurrect his career by assuming the fictitious identity Chad Powers to become a South Georgia catfish. What did you think when you first saw the Eli Manning video?
I don't even remember it, to be honest with you. I know that it was like pretty viral.
Okay.
when
Do
it
you
came
remember?
out.
Do you remember the Baker Mayfield follow-up video?
No, Baker Mayfield did a follow-up?
He did, and he had a different name for his character. And so I have 4 names for you, and you get to pick which one you think it was, okay?
Okay.
Gus Swayze, Tyson Wrighton, which is pronounced right on, Big Touchdown, or Braxton Puffley.
I'm going to go with Braxton Puffley.
So you just went with the last one?
Yeah.
No, it was Gus Swayze.
Gus Swayze?
Gus Swayze. Yeah.
Are they trying to do their own type of Avengers world?
His looked so bad. Like, it was so obvious that they were just doing the Eli. I'm pretty sure everybody who participated in the sketch knew, because they probably seen the Eli Manning one.
It's like when Arnold Schwarzenegger dressed up as like a workout coach, but it was just so obviously him, and then he went
Did
to
he do
the
an
gym.
accent?
I don't think so. I think
Glen
he
Powell
uses
does an
actual
accent
voice.
in this show, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the 2-episode premiere was Tuesday, September 30th, a couple days ago. The first 2 episodes are called First Quarter, Second Quarter. It's a 6-episode series, 6 quarters. Does that mean double overtime? Because in college, they do have double overtime.
Do they? I know that for football, it's only double overtime. I think if it's the playoff.
Yeah, because we just had a game that ended in a tie against Green Bay and the Cowboys.
Well, speaking about names that ended in a tie, that's actually where this series starts off. And already you can see the difference between ESPN production company and Spike production company with BMS, because at least with ESPN, you got a full-on football game. With BMS, you never saw them, especially with like all the extras, like any fans or anything. You never actually saw them play football. Even in the finale, I think it was only like at a ranch that they were playing. But here, it's treated as if we're coming in from a commercial break. The Oregon Ducks and the Georgia Bulldogs, it's 31-31. And then, as we were talking about, Russ, that's Glen Powell, he does a Josh Allen run to end the game. It's the last play before I think they're about to go into overtime, and he ends up being able to just dodge so many people. He's running around.
I'd say it reminded me more like a Lamar Jackson when he's being all squishy and he's going through all the tackles.
I say Josh Allen because he's my quarterback for fantasy football right now.
Or Michael Vick back in the day.
Or Patrick Mahomes, even when he was kind of
No, Mahomes was never fast.
He never was?
Yeah, and I would but so this guy's slippery. He does an amazing thing. He's running down the field. What happens at the very end?
Yeah, so he celebrates too early. He drops the ball and he makes it into the end zone.
Passes that line.
So it's still active and it counts as a fumble, and then you see the other team take the ball and they return it for a touchdown.
Did you catch his excuse as to why he dropped the ball? Because he didn't take responsibility for it. He said that he blamed the fans. He said the fans were too loud. They made it seem like he had gotten the touchdown before he actually had. So that's the reason he dropped it. And then someone else from the other team just came up, snatched it, ran it down the other side for a touchdown. The game ended 38-31.
I can't remember what it was, but there was a game exactly like that. I think it was a couple years ago where someone intercepted a ball and they were running to the touchdown. And then I think that they were trying to flaunt it because they started to walk to the end zone, but didn't realize that the defense was right behind them. So they didn't make it to the end zone and got tackled, and then a fumble happened. Mm-hmm. Here, though, we see that, Russ is a dick to fans because there's a kid in a wheelchair. That kid says, "You're still my favorite player."
That kid was there for Russ.
Yes,
like,
right.
It was like his, what's the name of that organization?
Make-A-Wish.
Make-A-Wish. So that was his Make-A-Wish.
And the dad was like, "Hey, Russ, my kid's talking to you." Russ is so mad that he just
Was that his dad or was that another coach?
It was I think it was his dad, or it was at least someone that was supposed to be watching over the kid. Russ and him get into a fight, and then Russ ends up punching him, and then that guy topples over, and even the kid in the wheelchair topples over, and that's kind of the end to his career. This is
important, I guess, to just show that Russ is not a good guy.
Right, and that's why that was kind of my first indication as to, okay, with Ted Lasso, which is just supposed to be a lighthearted comedy, we're supposed to, Russ is just a dislikable character.
Screen Rant said this is more than a Ted Lasso replacement. Is this what they're talking about? Is the fact that this guy is more of a dick what they were talking about?
I mean, probably, because
Okay.
again, Ted Lasso is supposed to be a good guy. Russ is just, yeah, he's not. But when we get the after the intro, we get a very strange scene. So Russ, he's just been promoted to the XFL Vegas
I don't think
Vipers.
it's a promotion. It's more like his career fell apart and he gets sort of a side and he is happy about it.
Right.
He's gotten a job.
And he says he even gives the excuse that if he made it to the NFL, he wouldn't have been able to show up on like The Masked Singer.
And his
other
dad
things.
tells him this was like 6 or 7 years after the original screw up.
I think it was 8 years after.
Really?
8 years
So it was
later.
like 8 years later. He's much older and he's just partying in nightclubs.
Yeah,
and
so he's going to the
driving
nightclub.
around in a Cybertruck.
It was very strange. Yeah, the Cybertruck was funny, but it was so strange because I remember Mr. Throwback. Do you remember the Steph Curry show from
Yeah,
like
that was
a year
another
ago?
comparison that I was going to bring up later.
He says the Hawk Tua line. Like Steph Curry says it, and I remember I gave the show credit for it because it was only a couple months after that happened. Chad Powers
Big fan of the podcast?
Chad Powers does the same thing though as Steph Curry, like a year later. Yeah. So
Well, the Hawk to a person shows up.
actually Haley Welch, yeah, shows
And
up.
from Reddit, apparently 50% of the audience tuned out as soon as that happened. That if you were just judging off that.
It was a con for me because it seemed
You don't want to
poorly timed.
give her any sort of props for
Especially
trying to
as
redeem her career.
public opinion has completely flipped on her since her meme coin scandal. It was just strange to see that she was actually there. Also, the references just seem very old. Russ says, anything is possible, which is a direct reference to Kevin Garnett's line that he says, but SNL I'm on a boat was referencing that back in early 2009.
But this is supposed to maybe show the guy is like, yeah, he's past his prime. And also when he goes back, not only is he like making up this wild backstory about him being Southern and raised by wolves or whatever, but also just like maybe not being able to hang out with the kids in their lingo, in the same way. However, I do think they kind of made the surrounding cast older too.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean
know,
that.
that's usually what they do when they have an older like first main character.
But even with those references, like you're talking about Mrs. Doubtfire, which I get it, they're paying homage because it's kind of the same.
They literally
type
show
of
a picture
things.
of it. Like
Right,
that's
the
how he
post-
thinks of doing this crazy scenario. So they had to take what was obviously a skit from Eli Manning, where he was only going to be doing that for like 2 minutes, and instead make it into a realistic story arc about a guy trying to redeem his career. He gets fired from the XFL before he even starts, right?
because it resurfaces that the kid that was in the wheelchair from the first scene.
So he's been canceled.
Dead. Yes.
And now he's redeeming it, or he what he realizes is that he can't make his image better, and so he needs to create this new character and pretend to be that person. And then once he shows that that person is like super talented, then he can take off the mask and get a good contract again.
Yeah, well, I was already like kind of giving a con for the show for like the old references and Haley Welch's cameo, but I was glad to see that Toby Huss it makes an appearance. He's playing the dad. He's almost made a complete transfer to comedy. I mean, if you think about like Weird, the Al Yankovic story, The Righteous Gemstones, Dickinson, White House Plumbers, Bookie, it seems like even his part in Weapons was supposed to be kind of funny.
I forget if in Dickinson he played sort of like a hard ass, but I do think he was nice to his daughter in that. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was the stepmom or the mom who was mean.
And he works for Fox, so that's a perfect way for Russ to be able to get the prosthetics.
He
to try
works
and
for
try
Michael
out.
Bay, right?
Yeah.
Like he's working on a film for Michael Bay, and he also worked on like really old movies like Apocalypse or
Yeah.
stuff. And so, or Armageddon. I forget which one he references later on.
We get even a side storyline about the team that eventually Russ is going to try out for the South Georgia Catfish. Steve Zahn, it did not surprise me at all. They tried to make it a reveal at the very end of the episode that his daughter is working for him. And
That I feel like is a very common trope in shows now, where you have the millennial, like who's sort of nepotistically there. You even have that in The Office when we talked about it, but she doesn't necessarily feel like she's gotten everything. She both wants to prove herself,
right.
but she also is haunted by the fact that her father is the coach.
Coach Ricky, her name is, but I found it funny because Steve Zahn, I only know him as someone that plays the dad. Think about his other roles, The White Lotus, Eeny Meeny, even the first thing that I ever saw him in, which was the Diary of a Wimpy Kid film. He plays the dad in all three of those too. So it seems like he's almost been typecast as that.
Thing you do, American, was he in American Pie? Was that the other guy? No, I always get him and the other guy confused. Silo, he was most recently in that where he wasn't playing a dad. But yeah, he's shown up a lot lately. It was cool to see him. He plays sort of a nice coach.
Yes.
Right? He's not as much of a dick. There is a dick coach on the staff that everybody doesn't like. And the last thing about Ricky, his daughter, what's his face, his daughter, is that she's also the love interest, I think.
Right, yeah.
Right, to Chad Powers.
That's what they're hinting at right now.
Right. And so Chad shows up at this open tryout. However, he's not even a student at the school, which you sort of need to be.
He doesn't have an ID, obviously, either. He comes up with the name Chad Powers right as she asks him about it.
He does meet the mascot. The mascot's like, I'm going to help you with your makeup. Make sure that you look good for this thing so that no one figures out who you actually are.
Practically pepper sprayed him because he thought he was a school shooter. So I was like, okay, these jokes are definitely supposed to kind of be darker, definitely like a TV MA type show.
Right.
But did you like the scene where Chad Powers eventually does try out and then he actually was able to do the football? Because at first he's not...
The football?
He will, throw it as well. Because at first he's like very scared to even do it.
He's getting little flashbacks of when he failed last time.
Yeah, and then you're getting the mascot kind of giving him a pep talk.
I think everybody was waiting for it, for the end of the episode where he like starts connecting. Because I think that's even in the trailers, and it's just like, okay, it wouldn't make any sense if this guy didn't make it out of the gate. Because how would the next 5 episodes work out?
Well, I really like the scene, but also I felt like it was a direct reference to Hard Knocks. Because even when
Lee Schreiber shows up, he starts doing the narration.
But they could have had him because even when Chad Powers is throwing the football, they're doing the slow-mo and the catches exactly like how that's shot when we watch Hard Knocks.
Yeah, I mean they do such an interesting thing in this first 2 episodes where they abbreviate what I think open tryouts. You don't instantly make the team right after one tryout. It would be a set of them. However, you do get the first one. He would have been invited back. But he thinks by the end of the first episode, because he's kind of led to believe it by the coach, that he's become the starter on the team. And then even crazier is that once he is the starter on the team, they do one practice and then he loses the job as starter on the team. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I know we're drifting into the second episode, but like then they decide to flip to the backup because of a water balloon fight in the second episode. Like this is a pure comedy. There's not a lot of realism in that.
I can give the show a pass, especially if it's 6 episodes for the pacing. But yes, any type of like actual logic being applied to this TV show, and you're just going to be kind of lost.
Mm-hmm.
The backup quarterback that you're talking about is Jerry. Jerry seems to be like a nice person, but he's able to connect with the team, at least because the main thing about...
Well, the rest of the team makes fun of him.
Right. But
he's a nerd.
But the reason that they pick him is because Chad just seems too weird. He can't get himself wet because then his prosthetics are going to be kind of knocked off. In fact, it seemed like
that shower scene. What'd you think of the shower scene when he first announces? And the coach comes in, he's like, you got to be a team member here. You can't just... They can't see the quarterback of the team not wanting to associate and getting clean with the rest of them. And he's like, I can't be naked. I've got a giant pee hole. And if there's water in there, then it could get infected and I'm going to die.
I was like, that
I like the Jerry Sandusky joke, though.
Probably my favorite thing that they did with the prosthetics, my favorite joke was the beginning of episode 2 where the bug gets in his face.
Oh, that was gross.
And it looks like it's inside him and he's having to fish it out. And then the guy that is giving them
the fake ID.
His birth certificate and everything is like really disgusted and freaking out. I thought that was the best that I got in terms of humor.
Here's the thing that never made sense about the Eli Manning one or this one is like, do the prosthetics actually make him look younger?
No, but I think that's the joke. I think it's that for the people in
everyone's
this world,
an idiot.
Yeah, that's because everyone basically is an idiot.
He's got this like really fake mustache, but it looks like it's graying. It just makes the guy look like he's older than Glen Powell is in normal life.
Yeah, how old is Glen Powell, do you know?
Again, late 30s or maybe even 40.
Yeah, because he looks like he's in his 40s with this makeup on.
Even with the fake chin and stuff like that. I guess the giant wig is there to like mask a little, but Eli Manning's version was super ugly too. So I don't know. And then also, did you expect Jerry to win by the end of the second episode? Because it
No.
did seem like it was sort of leading towards, at the end of the balloon war or whatever, that Chad had actually secured the job.
Right, because he actually realized that he had to try and participate with the team, and it was a water balloon fight that was also like dodgeball. I was a little annoyed that they did give the starting job to Jerry, because I feel like, especially with only 4 episodes left, I really want to see Chad Powers play football and just be this fake person, and it seems like we haven't really gone it
You
this
want to
much.
see the character succeed. So despite the fact that we've already kind of assumed that he's a dick, he drives a Cybertruck, he like knocks over cancer patients, and he feels sorry for himself all the time, because he has inherent talent, we should still root for him. Also because he's so stupid that he just keeps on burying himself into a bigger pit whenever he talks about his backstory.
I did like how Danny was having to add everything, and it was like, this is canon stuff. Like, you
What
can't
were
just
some of the things
keep
they were adding?
that he grew up with the crawdads, as he said, or where the crawdads were, and that they only talked about their highlights because he didn't have a highlight reel, and that's something that Trisha was asking about. And
Oh, you're saying when the booster lady was wanting their like DVD of pictures,
Right.
home movies and stuff that they could use, and he didn't have any because he's basically half Amish, half like, again, raised by wolves, and he just appears in and out of the forest because he has to keep parking or being dropped
Right.
off, I guess.
And
Yeah.
I think he's one with the woods because of that.
Okay.
So overall, I thought that like the humor really worked for the TV series. Like I said, my favorite part was probably the bug in the face. I even liked, even though I didn't like Hawk Tua's cameo, I did like Stephen A. Smith's cameo. Smith's
Yeah.
cameo in the first episode. I don't even think he does a lot of cameos, but it reminded me a lot of like Part of My Take with Chain Conduct, or PTI.
I wouldn't be
Creed.
surprised if PTI shows up, because the ESPN is all over this. Omaha Productions. I have a sort of production trivia game for you, okay?
Okay.
And then one of them is not true, okay? Patrick Mahomes' coach coached Glen Powell for the role. That's one of them. Eli Manning was impressed by his Top Gun dogfight football form. You remember that?
Right, yeah.
He had to stay, Glen Powell had to stay sober throughout all of filming. And the last one was that he based his character off of Johnny Manziel.
And one of these is true, or one of these?
No, one of these is false.
One of these is false.
You remember
Okay.
Johnny Manziel is the guy who like just kind of partied too hard and
Right.
partied himself out of football.
And so I'm gonna say the last one's true, because that's kind of what we see at the very beginning.
Not only is that true, but 6 months before filming began on Chad Powers, Powell met with Manziel after playing golf at the Waste Management in Phoenix.
Okay, yeah, no, because he was there for that. Yeah, back in February. I'm gonna say that the sober one. They had to stay sober throughout all production.
No, so apparently, like the alcohol in your body, if you're sweating it out, will actually hurt the prosthetics. It will make that glue fall apart. So he
okay.
wasn't allowed to drink, and this was, I guess, the longest time he hadn't.
Was
had
it the Patrick Mahomes coach one that was?
Nope, that
false?
was also true. They got Patrick Mahomes to coach him. Apparently, Eli did not like the way that the football was portrayed in Top Gun and the forms, because apparently that was more about just showing off bodies.
Well, yeah,
Anyways, yeah. So, what do you think about Bad Bunny highlighting or headlining the Super Bowl?
yeah, that came out like last week, right?
You a big fan?
I don't
It's
listen
gotta
to
be
his music a
polarizing.
lot. Yeah, no, I thought that Kendrick Lamar did a great job last year, though. So I wonder if he's going to be able to beat that.
You think Drake's gonna be showing up this time? Then they also had the director. I thought this was interesting, who had also done sort of, well, listen to this. So, American Vandal, Players, and Lil Dicky's Earth video. Tony Yacenda, he's the one who did and it just seems like that kind of fits with the vibe.
I also wasn't sure if Glen Powell's voice was going to work, because I was annoyed with it at first, but by the end of the second episode, I kind of got used to it.
What's your ultimate rating on the
I'm
show?
going to be giving it a 7 out of 10, and I probably will be watching the rest of it.
Did you like it more or less than The Paper?
I think, the paper? Interesting comparison. I guess I like the paper more, but I was going to say this is probably the best sports show of this year. Yeah, which is not really that much competition anyways.
I'm trying to think of all the sports shows we've done. This is Stick, obviously.
Again, yeah, Stick and Running Point were the only ones I really came up with.
So you said 7. What's your PPR rating for it? No, it's still 7. The critics and audiences tend to be aligned on this one. Rotten Tomatoes has a 57% critic score, 55% audience score, 54 on Metacritic. did get a 4 out of 5 on at the Guardian. Time said Powell might have been appealing enough to make this goofy premise work if Russ and his alter ego weren't two of the most obnoxious characters on TV.
Again, Russ is a dislikable character. Like,
Yeah.
don't tune in thinking this is going to be Ted Lasso part 2.0. But
They wanted to make it not Rudy. That's why they were kind of making the joke about it, where they don't want this guy to be like some, do good, and then the team rallies around. So it's interesting. It's got a fair share of haters. Telegraph, Roger Ebert, IndieWire called him an uninteresting jerk. Entertainment Weekly, USA, and Hollywood Reporter all gave it negative reviews.
This is something that I think is more akin to something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
As someone who watched it from like the corner of their eye while they were doing other things, I think it's the perfect comedy for something like that. You do not have to be invested to,
Right.
You'll catch more jokes, obviously, but like this is one of those ones you can just have on in the background. And so I think it will find an audience for that reason.
And I think that it's also kind of like Eastbound and Down. One con that I did have that I didn't mention was that when it comes to things like Bookie and Mr. Throwback and even Running Point, there's a lot of times where even though their main objective is to be entertaining or funny, you actually can learn things with like Bookie vocabulary terms a lot when it comes to betting. And I remember even with Mr. Throwback, you can learn about kind of the monetary aspect and how the NBA uses things. Here, there's nothing like that. You're not going to get any like educational value.
Even
from
Welcome
it.
to Wrexham, you were like learning about how the leagues were set up and
But
stuff
that
like
was
that.
that was more a documentary. I'm just talking about things that even our comedies sometimes have it, and this did not.
Yeah.
So.
Sneaky observation, though. I think that you don't bring on a showrunner or the creator, Michael Waldron, unless you plan to have like another dimension to the show. So maybe the first season or the first couple episodes are trending towards this being a very cliche sports comedy. And then maybe there's going to be some big twist.
Could be something like Parks and Rec,
Maybe there's a snap of the fingers and half the team disappeared. Well, that should do us for the episode. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.